Mark out Mania. Mark out Mania. It's Saturday morning and we're marking out on Mark Out Mania.
Woohoo!
Hola, amigos, and welcome to Mark Out Mania.
What's going on?
How's it going? How's it
Good,
going?
good, Pedro.
The God of Thunder, artist extraordinaire, Zeus King Dark.
What's up? Great, glad to be here on this wonderful Saturday morning.
Yeah, it's a nice Saturday morning. It's a good morning to mark out and talk about some wrestling and all that good stuff.
So we got a one little snag. Our third member of our trio.
Oh, I see.
What is up, guys? What is up, guys? I'm sorry I had a little issue real quick, but I'm here. I'm excited to be here. I'm here with Pedro Tex. I'm here with Zeus. I'm excited. What is up, everybody?
What is up?
Woo! I'm ready to talk about wrestling. I'm ready to mark out. I just had my pancakes. I'm ready to go, guys. I'm ready to go.
All right, man. So this is kind of Pedro's brainchild. Pedro, why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit and like what you grew up watching?
Oh man, so growing up in Texas, we just kind of always watched wrestling. I'm trying to think. I've been trying to think for the last week or so. Like, what did we first start watching? But we just kind of always saw it. But I think I know.
World Class.
Yeah, there was World Class.
Oh yeah, definitely World Class. Yeah.
And there was other stuff. I know in the mid '80s, when the whole Hulk Hogan and the Rock and Wrestling thing in the WWF, that's when my brother and I like really got invested in the wrestling. Like we would casually watch it, and then we saw that stuff, and we were like, oh my god.
Yeah, so like when it exploded, that's when you guys really got into it.
Yeah, we really got into the WWF. Like we would watch wrestling, but we could sort of take and leave it because before that, and then during that '85 sort of time period, we really got into the wrestling, and
yeah, because '85 was the first WrestleMania,
right?
And there was a lot of hype. There was a lot of hype in '84 and everything leading up to all that.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's that cartoon. Speaking about Saturday mornings.
Oh yeah,
that rock and wrestling thing with Hulk Hogan,
and all the WWF stars.
Yes, way into that, and then of course we just kept getting deeper into it. The TBS, the NWA, WCW. Everything else that came. The ESPN would show AWA like late on Saturday nights, and then
yeah, I remember that. I remember those AWA shows late Saturday nights. Yeah,
didn't they have them on like Thursday nights for a while too?
I think they did.
Because I think it's like I remember when the Road Warriors disappeared from NWA, and my dad watched a lot of ESPN, and he's like, your boys are on ESPN. And I'm like, what do you mean? And that's basically how I discovered the AWA, because I only knew it from magazines at that point.
Yeah, that's the thing that got me started. I was all into the kayfabe magazines, like the Inside Wrestling, like Pro Wrestling Illustrated. That's how I found out about guys like Tommy Rich, Dusty Rhodes, even very young Paul Orndorff, stuff like that. So those are the magazines that got me into it.
Oh yeah, yeah. All that whole family, because there's There was like six magazines from that Pro Wrestling Illustrated family.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
yeah.
And Bill Apter and all those
all
guys,
those
Eddie
guys.
Elner, all those
George
columnists.
Napolitano, yeah. Oh yeah, all those guys.
Like, of course, growing up here in North Carolina, you get
Ric Flair country.
We got NWA, we got Jim Crockett Promotions. I mean that was the stuff. And then when we started getting TBS, which I think was like the late 70s, I was pretty little, so I can't remember exactly when, but that's when we started getting Georgia Championship Wrestling, and so and that was the thing is you saw a lot of sharing of the talent even before Crockett took it over.
Right.
It's like, well, Ric Flair loved Charlotte, he moved to Charlotte, and that's just a 4-hour drive down to Atlanta. So a lot of guys were working Atlanta and the Carolinas, and at the same time, and everybody was they were all making money, and some guys would drive down, some guys were working Florida and Georgia, and that was a good central point, and then we got Florida on TV, we got World Class. I mean, we had a lot of wrestling, and it was about that 1984 time period when we started getting WWF, which I didn't like at first. I did.
I mean, with with what you're watching, yeah, that would make sense.
Well, everybody was so used to the closed-in, or the studio shows. They were all closed in. There was a small audience. It was intimate. And then, actually, here comes the WWF, and they have these arena shows, and they have these big shows, and we're like, okay, and the crowd's quiet. So it was a bit of a difference, I mean, I grew up in the Bronx, okay? I was born and raised in the Bronx, and there, it was either Yankee baseball or you wrestled. So
right.
All of us would run home and we watched Hulk Hogan and all those people. Everybody was a Hulk Hogan mark. I love the Magnificent Morocco. Actually, he was my guy. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, here comes cable TV. I mean, USA, TNT. I was like, what the hell is TNT? That Dynamite? I mean, come on. And then all of a sudden I started discovering Florida Championship Wrestling on TV, World Class Championship Wrestling, ESPN with the AWA, all of a sudden Jim Crockett Promotions. And I was like, oh my God, look at this. It's Kevin Sullivan. It's Black Bart. It's Dusty Rhodes. It's Kerry Von Erich. These are all the guys I was reading about in the Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazines. And that's when I was hooked. And then I saw Ric Flair, and it was a wrap. It was all over. That was it.
The magazines, like y'all were saying, were great back then. Like I used to have some of them. I don't think I have them anymore because they got too moldy or whatever from being kept badly. But I used to have a ton of those magazines, and like you would see those pictures of like. Do you remember seeing like pictures of Abdul the Butcher with like?
And Henry Carlos Colon with the fork. Yeah,
and like and it's like I never seen Abdul the Butcher, like I never seen him in action for years, but I was frightened of him because of these pictures you would see in magazines and stuff. And you'd be like, what is going on here? Like this is,
yeah, he was frightening with, stabbing people with forks and, like, I mean, he was like, I mean, we have fun on the, the Way Too Real podcast, we got the eye shank.
Exactly.
Command, but I mean, you talk
big
about
shout out to Way Too Real and to MMM, by the way.
He was shanking people.
Oh yeah, he was brutal, but he's such a nice guy in real life too. He was such a nice guy, but he was brutal in the ring.
Oh yeah, he definitely. I mean, when he was in character, he was definitely somebody extremely scary.
But it was those magazines that actually made me, realize that there was something else besides Hulk Hogan. Back in the early 80s, it was, this guy and that guy. And, I would think it was the first time, they ever stepped into a ring, you know. And then all of a sudden, I just go to the magazines. I'm like, wait a minute. Isn't the Widowmaker Barry Windham? Yes, he is. You know, and you know, I started going. You know, I started going backwards. I started going back in history, and that's how I found out about the Colognes and the Abdullah the Butchers, and then the WWC, and then Catch Wrestling, the AWA, and you know, Otto Watts, and I just like I was like a sponge, and I branched out from watching WWF because it became too cartoony. Even though we were all into it, you know. But then, you know, I wanted to see actual wrestling. And then, you know, I was discovering guys like Sam Houston and, you know, and all these other guys. I'm like, wow, this is what I want to see. And it just branched out from there.
You know, one of the things that, like, you know, way back in the day, one of those things that really made you go, wow, these guys are legit was there was a day where in the Mid-Atlantic where Ric Flair he was going to put on a little wrestling exhibition with this.
I guess Johnny Piper. Yes. I remember that. Zeus, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yes. You know, and then Piper shows up, and Piper busts his nose.
Yeah.
You know, he busted his nose with a forearm. You know, while they were, you know, going at it, and it's like, oh wow, it's like, yeah, these guys really hate each other. These guys, you know. These guys, you know how to really wrestle. You know, it's like they do the stuff, you know, off the ropes to do more damage or whatever. But man, they can just go like it's no tomorrow.
That was an amazing segment. That just goes to show you like how far ahead it was at that time. Even that time then, you know, I mean, all of us were all sucked in. I mean, I'm afraid to say this, but you know what? I'm gonna say it anyway. What the hell? I cried. I did that. Jim Cornette got busted open the head, and he's bleeding all over the floor on my World Championship Wrestling program because it was the Battle of the Midnight Express. Remember that?
Oh yeah. When the original Midnights came
in, and you know, here comes Paul Heyman, and he just busted open Jim Cornette. And I cried, and you know, I'm yelling at my TV. He's not a wrestler; he's a manager. You know, like I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and I'm crying, and you know, that's how real it was to me back then. You know?
Yeah. I mean, and that was, you know, the Midnights were coming out of that, you know, coming off of that heel run, and you know, they were basically trying to find a spot for him after the Road Warriors got through them because they didn't want them going at each other anymore for some reason.
Right. Yeah.
But that was, and you know, what's funny is I got into an argument on Twitter with Rip Rogers about that because he was like, "Oh, surprises are stupid." He's like, "You should always tell people somebody's coming and make money." And I'm like, well, if you don't have surprises, then you don't have great moments like that.
Exactly.
You know, and just like when Steamboat would come back, you know, they didn't just sit there and go, oh, hey, you know, Ricky Steamboat's coming back. Well,
you were watching the program and there he goes. He does a run in and you're like, oh my God, it's Steamboat, you know, and you go crazy.
Yeah. Like, you know, like when he came back when, it was like 92 or whatever, and Barry Windham's hand was busted up, and you know, Steamboat came back with that big dragon head on, and came out, and him and Dustin beat I think it was Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko for the WCW tag titles. Yeah,
it was always the moments like that. It was always little moments that you know, like that always had you going like one of the moments for me is when they turned Nikita Koloff face.
Oh yeah,
and here comes Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Koloff together, and I just lost it. I was like, yes, this is what I want to see. In the middle of the Cold War and all this, here comes the Russians, here comes the Americans, it's on. And I was so proud to be a wrestling fan back then. I mean, I talked so much crap to all my friends. Oh, they were telling me wrestling is fake, you know, Iron Sheik and Jim Duggan, they got busted in the car doing cocaine, blah, blah, blah. It's all fake. And, you know, I'm like, yeah, but you don't watch NWA. You know,
right.
You don't watch Florida Championship Wrestling and so on, you know, the Road Warriors, you know. Oh, it was just incredible.
I think it's safe to say probably all of us, especially of that generation, of our generation, who was into wrestling, we had a thing where we like to watch everything at some
Yeah.
point in time. Like any wrestling thing we like to get our hands on or watch.
Yeah, and I got a.
I mean, actually, both you
interesting-
guys, I actually grew up in great places for wrestling. I mean, Texas, and in the Carolinas. I mean, come on, man, you guys must have seen so many good moments, man. Some amazing moments.
Hey, one of the coolest things about Texas is like the Spanish language channels. Like towards the late '80s, sometimes they would show like back then it was called EMLL.
Yes, EMLL, yeah.
So we got to see some of that stuff like towards the end of the '80s.
That was some
I got into that by tape trading at ECW shows. That's how I found out about EMLL and all that.
Yeah, I was buying from a tape trader. I found his information in the back of one of the magazines, not the Bill After magazines, but the George Napolitano magazines.
Right. Yeah.
And because they would always have more. They always had more freedom. I thought they always, they didn't dig so deep into the kayfabe as the PWI guys, but they always had more like glossy, color pictures and stuff like that, and they were definitely different, but that's where I found Tape Trader, and that's when I.
Do y'all remember some of those magazines having kind of like dirty ads in them?
Yeah.
Like
ads that were sort of dirty.
There was one recurring ad. I don't know if you guys remember, but it was a blonde in a bikini top, and all she kept saying was "order now, order now." And I looked for that phone number for months. Every month I looked for that phone number, the new magazine, and I never found the number to order. And I had no idea what I was ordering.
Yeah, there was definitely some sketchy stuff, and like like cat fighting videos, and
you remember the way they used to advertise? They had a video of women's wrestling from Japan, and like they had the most racist title. They had the most racist title, like "slant-eyed bitches" or something like that. And it was
what's so funny, Tex? What's so funny about that? You can't get away with none of that today. I mean, the shit they got away with back then, it was incredible.
I mean, it's terrible. When you think back on it, you're like, what an awful thing. Like, if you went back and
you can't even do the $1 Million Man and Virgil angle anymore.
Oh, that's true.
No, you couldn't do that.
You couldn't even do that now.
No. Hell, you couldn't do the Orient Express.
No, that's right. No, that's right. That's right.
I got an interesting little tidbit going back to the, when Nikita turned face after Magnum had the car wreck. My mother, she was a secretary at one of the hospitals in Winston-Salem in the neurosurgery department. And when Magnum had his wreck and they were going to do surgery, they had all three of the neurosurgeons from Winston go down to Charlotte to help with the surgery on Magnum. And after it was over, my mom came to me and said, "He's never going to walk again."
Wow, that must have blown your mind. I would have just lost it right there.
That was pretty crushing, and it
was devastating.
He did come back to he did walk again, which was a miracle.
Yeah,
and he has more mobility than they thought he would. Especially at this point in his life.
He was always in good shape, so that helped.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a pretty trippy thing. Once again, something. I mean, from being.
How did you feel, Zeus? Like, when you heard that, how did it make you feel at that moment? I mean, you must have been devastated.
It was definitely a gut punch because really, if I remember correctly, it was really Nikita that extended the his hand out in friendship to Magnum.
He sent a dollar branch,
yeah, because they did a video where he was still in character, but he was like, when I hear about this, he's like, he's the most, the toughest opponent I've ever faced and everything like that. And so, that was a really big emotional thing. And a lot of people, weren't even sure how bad the wreck really was because you didn't know what was, story, what was exaggerated and, all this and that. But, once they called the neurosurgeons down from Baptist Hospital down to Charlotte and everything. And then when I heard back from my mom, that was, that was when it was legit,
right?
Because a lot of people were like, oh, well, it's well, hopefully he'll be back in the ring soon. And, it's like, and that was my question was like, how long before he can wrestle again? It's like, he's never going to walk again.
Right. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. That's incredible.
And at the time, I liked, my favorite back then in the NWA was Barry Windham. And,
yeah, everybody loved Barry Windham.
And he kind of he bounced around, and later on you found out not everybody treated him that great. But he was at it was him and Mike Rotunda were the World Tag Team Champions at the first WrestleMania.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So
the U.S. Express.
Yeah.
Yes.
And him and Mike bounced around, a good bit, trying to find that good deal. And, finally Crockett came around and, Barry thought, Dusty was going to, take care of him. But, Magnum and Dusty were like, a little bit further down on my totem pole. But you kind of hate, it's like whenever, you don't want to see bad things happen to somebody that doesn't deserve it.
No.
Right.
But yeah, that's,
I was a big Four Horsemen guy. I like the original Four Horsemen. Okay. I love the original Four Horsemen. So every time Barry came out, every time Dusty came out, I used to boo at my TV. Okay. I always rooted for the heels. Okay. Always. That's why I love when Nikita, that's why I love that face turn because I was in love with Nikita Koloff. I thought it was perfect. And, I couldn't stand, I hated Dick Slater. I didn't want to see Sam Houston and all those cheesy guys. I'm like, get the hell off my TV. I want to see the Horsemen, And it was like, I felt bad for Barry because, we've all heard the story that he was groomed to be the champ. He was going to get the strap. They were going to go do this. They were going to do that. And then, at the last second, it was pulled, it was turned, this changed, that person said no. And I ended up feeling bad for him at the end because he was one hell of a performer. He was a great face, and he was the perfect enemy to Ric Flair at the time.
Yeah, he was and nobody, it's like him, Flair, and Steamboat. There's only 3 or 4 guys that could go for an hour like those guys could.
Right. Yeah. But, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I discovered World Class. And that was a whole other different level. I was like, what is this?
That we got that. We would get that on Saturday mornings here. And
I was like, who the hell is Skandar Akbar? I love this guy.
Skandar Akbar was great.
He was really, really smart. He was a really intelligent guy. He didn't talk like the Iron Sheik or like Adnan KC. He was very fluent in English, and you could tell in other languages. And he came across as very smart, very devious, and I think that was one of the things that made him and Devastation Incorporated. So
that was such a great stable. I used to love the Missing Link. I was a fan of Gino Hernandez. It was great stuff. God. It was great stuff, man.
I'll tell y'all something about talking about managers from World Class. Besides Skandar Akbar, and then you had Gary Hart.
Oh yeah, love Gary Hart.
Percy Pringle.
Yeah, that's right. Paul Bell. Yeah, that's right.
I remember my brother and I hated Percy Pringle. We were like, we thought he was kind of effeminate or whatever, which,
yeah,
we were young men at the time. No, we were young men at the time, so it was a different time, How,
he used to wear those powder blue vests and those powder pink vests and stuff like that. Oh, yeah.
And I remember when he showed up as Paul Bearer in the WWF, and we were like, "That's Percy Pringle, that asshole, Percy Pringle,
Percival Pringle the Third."
There you go, Zeus. There you go. Exactly.
He was, and
it was awesome.
God, I think wasn't the youngest Von Erich was kind of wrestling him a lot before Pringle.
That was
left.
Mike, right?
Yeah.
No, Chris.
No.
Oh, it's Chris.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Because Chris, he never got really tall.
No, he was always a little small. Yeah.
Yes.
And because it was and they put him with the Simpson brothers. Sean Steve Simpson, those guys from South Africa.
Yeah. Wow, so you got good memory.
Do y'all remember the fake Von Erich, Lance?
Yes, Lance Von Erich. Yes,
he was like the quote cousin, but he wasn't a real Von Erich.
Where is he from? Where is he from originally?
I think he was from there, but everybody, that's the problem with everybody in the Sportatorium. Everybody knew everybody, and they were like, "Who the hell is this guy?"
Yeah, Lance Von Erich. That was brutal.
But he was a good-looking dude. I mean,
he was. But if
he'd have been,
his in-ring ability was okay at best, though.
Yeah, if he'd have looked like Dick Slater, he'd have been booed pretty heavily.
Yeah,
because and you talk about stuff you can't do anymore. I mean, if you watched, even the faces like the Freebirds and Gino and Chris Adams,
the Confederate flag, he wears a cape.
Yeah, but just the way that they would come to the ring through the crowd.
Yeah, you can't do that.
They would have a string.
Yeah,
string.
Mm-hmm.
And they would, and the guys would have to push their way through the crowd. Half of the girls are trying to stab them. The other half of them are trying to kiss them.
Have 5 minutes to your entrance.
How many times do you think those guys got, touched in inappropriate ways by fans?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh man,
I'm sure Michael Hayes went to the ring with a chubby a couple times. I'm sure.
I'm sure he was really excited about it. In World Class.
You put on like Ted Nugent's what's that song? Stranglehold. Von Erich's coming out. The women are like grab at them crying.
It was like a rock concert.
Yeah, it was.
Stranglehold was that was Kevin's. That was Kevin's song. Carrie's was Modern Day Warrior.
Yes, Modern Day Warrior. Yes. Right.
And then of course Gino Hernandez and Chris Adams come out to Bad to the Bone.
Bad to the Bone. Yes. Yep. I used to love Gino Hernandez. He was awesome.
Gino Hernandez and Chris Adams were so great.
Oh, they were a great team.
They were great as opponents as well.
Yeah. I'll never forget when Gary Hart held up he grabbed the Texas heavyweight title belt and held it up to Kerry's face, and Chris Adams super kicked it right through his skull and won the Texas title.
Well, actually, speaking of Gary Hart, that was the first time I ever saw the Great Kabuki.
Oh yes,
and I was floored. I was like, this guy is legitimate badass.
Yeah, he'd been in the Carolinas. They'd been Gary Hart and Kabuki were here.
He was with Crockett for a little bit, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And here's something else that's funny too, is Kabuki would get booked in Japan and here in America. And there was this dude that would run around with Gary Hart and Kabuki, and he would wear a lucha style mask, and they called him Magic Dragon.
Yes.
Well, they were almost the same build, and he had long black hair too. So whenever Kabuki had to go to Japan, then Magic Dragon would be Kabuki here.
Nice.
So like for like, you know, like when he would be like on house shows and different things, and like if you ever saw a Kabuki match where like his hair is almost in his face like the entire time, and you know you never get a good look at him at all, it's like, you know, it probably wasn't Kabuki. He's probably in Japan.
It was Twin Magic, aka Bella style. That's how they did it.
But
so the guys, what really turned the page for me, as you know, as far as pro wrestling goes, after the big, you know, after the Jim Crockett and AWA and stuff like that, is when on a 2:00 in the morning on a Friday night, I'm coming home from the bar after a few beers, feeling, you know, having a good time. I happen to turn on Madison Square Garden network television in New York, and I see Terry Funk covered in barbed wire, and my first response was, "What the hell is this?"
Oh my God! It's Born to Be Wired.
And all of a sudden, is this little man on my TV talking about come down to Philadelphia, and it's Eastern Championship Wrestling. And there's Don Morocco, and older Don Morocco, and older Jimmy Snuka, or Chris Candido. And I was like, Eastern Championship Wrestling, who's this? And I was floored, you know? I mean, the place looked like it was a high school gym that got nuked, you know? I mean, there was no, like the barricades were old and used. I mean, how much Scotch tape did they use on the ring, you know, to patch it up? I mean, what is this show? I mean, what is it? It turned out to be, you know, it was ECW. And that was the turning point for me. That's when I fell all in. I was hooked. I said, this is it. You know, I'm all in, because that did it. And then we started seeing, you know, guys like Tommy Dreamer. And then, you know, I saw Sabu and I lost my mind.
Oh,
you know, I was like, who's this guy in the Hannibal Lecter mask? You know?
Oh yeah, and they bring him to the ring on the furniture dolly.
Yeah. And then he had 911 rolling him. And then, you know, and then you started seeing guys like Conan and Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrero and Psychosis come in. And I was like, where are these people coming from? Like, what is, like, how can they afford to pay these people where their ring and their TV show looks like complete shit? You know? It was like, how are they getting these people paid? And, you know, the crowd was into it. And, you know, and, you know, it was like the wrestlers knew the people in the crowd knew the wrestlers. And I was like, I got to be a part of this. I mean, this is amazing. And,
you know, you remember those super fans from ECW?
Yes.
Like the guy with the straw hat and the Hawaiian shirt.
You had the Hawaiian shirt guy, you had the straw hat guy, and you had the original sign guy. Mm-hmm. I remember all those.
Yeah, those guys were big fans of Jim Crockett, and my friend John Hitchcock. He was the ringleader of those Four Horsemen fans that were in Greensboro every week.
Really? All the guys in the sport coats? Yeah.
Oh. Yes.
Those guys were cool. Those guys were cool.
And they got so much soda and popcorn and all kinds of garbage thrown at them because they would stir up the crowd every night. I mean, they'd get the crowd going before the matches started.
That's awesome.
And he wrote a book. It's called Tales from the Front Row Section D. And and John's on the cover. He's got a fedora on, and they're holding up the Four Horsemen symbol, and that was a huge deal. They were a big part of that, that whole thing, because Arn Anderson said the whole Four Horsemen thing kind of in passing, but John and those guys, they were making posters. They would make those. They made a long, a row of posters that spelled out Horsemen one night.
Yeah, and the camera will always show them. Always show them. Yeah,
and like there was one night at one of the house shows when they kept, holding up the Four Horsemen, and Tully and Arn went in the back and were like, they were telling Jim Crockett, they were like, man, this thing's pretty over. We might want to run with this.
Right.
And that's, you know, that was one of those in that turning point where there was, you know, that became the name of those guys because they were just kind of all hanging out. You know, they were all just kind of getting thrown together. It's like, oh, we got like 10 minutes. Let's just put all these guys together, because the way they would do those local promos, it's like you'd have like, you know, guys just standing just off camera and, you know, but they just kept putting, you know, Flair. They were putting Tully and Arn and Ole together a lot because like, Flair was still wrestling Nikita, and Nikita was a heel.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and it finally took, I think it was when Dusty rescued Flair from being beaten up by, I think it was the Andersons, or not the Andersons, the Koloffs, and Dusty turned, and Flair turned on Dusty, and they broke his leg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was in a steel cage, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I tell you. YouTube has been so good for wrestling fans. You know, you can go back and you can see, it's like, you know, because we all used to just have to like rely on our memories or
Right.
you know, or in magazines. You know,
Mm-hmm.
now there's so much content on there.
I'm you know, I'm not a big WWE guy, even though I love NXT. I'm not a big WWE guy, but I love the WWE network. And it's only because you can archive all that old school footage. I mean, they got Mid-South Wrestling, World Class, Georgia, Florida Championship Wrestling, all the old school TV programs. And it just brings back so much memories and stuff that I used to watch when I was a kid, you know?
Oh,
and
yeah.
that and you know, it's just amazing, you know, and I love all that stuff, you know. I mark out the stuff like that.
Yeah. That's the name of the show.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mark out Mania, baby.
Recently, James, you might remember we had a conversation on privately on Twitter about I was going through and watching all the Taz Bam Bam Bigelow stuff.
Yes,
From ECW,
yes.
because I hadn't seen it in forever. And I was going through all the ECW shows on the network, and I was like watching those matches and be like, "Oh yes, I hadn't seen
those matches." Those matches were ahead of its time. I mean, you have a lot of those RVD matches were ahead of its time.
Oh yeah,
you know. I mean, he was so watered down after you got to WWE, but he was amazing at ECW. He was unfiltered. They gave him 20 minutes, and they were like, "Go," you know.
Yeah,
and
it was, you know, he was so. Rob was so good, and you know, he was able to, you know, bring out different things out of other people. It's like, you know, I mean, people were like, "Oh, you know, Jerry Lynn, he's so good, he's an excellent dude, everything," you know. But then that rivalry with Rob Van Dam,
that was one of the best rivalries that nobody spoke of.
Yeah, I mean, that was, you know, that really brought out the best of him.
Because nobody spoke on that. Everybody was talking about Tommy Dreamer and Raven. Everybody was talking about Sandman and Tommy Dreamer, but nobody was speaking about RVD and Jerry Lynn. So that was an amazing rivalry.
What was
I tell you,
what was Jerry Lynn's gimmick in Global?
Mr. JL.
Yeah,
Mr. JL. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think his I think that writing on his tights and boots, I believe it's Klingon.
Is it?
Yeah, I believe it is.
That's so cool.
Might be something to tweet at him, but I'm pretty sure
that
because he had
Mark Out Mania. You learned something new. I did not know that. I just learned something new. Only on Mark Out Mania. Look at that.
Oh my God! I learned something new. Mark Out Mania.
Mark Out Mania. It's not only entertaining, but it's educating. Look at that.
Yeah, the first ECW show I went to live was in Concord, and you know, I was like, man, I hope we get to see Rob tonight. And you know, they kept having match after match after match. And I'm like, God, you know, it's like, when the hell is it? And then they had Taz versus Sabu, False Count Anywhere.
Oh, that must have been ridiculous.
Oh, it was. And you're talking in this little rec center, which is just like a big gymnasium.
Right.
And that was the match where Taz, you know, broke Sabu's jaw.
Oh,
with the clothesline that led to the Living Dangerously.
Right.
And
as a Sabu had his right side of his face all taped up. Right, yeah.
Yeah, because they had to do they only had the RF video guys at that show.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have their TV cameras there, so they showed the footage from that.
RF video was awesome back in the day. RF video was awesome.
Oh yeah. And then after that match, then they had the match for the TV title. After the world title match, they had the match for the TV title. And I was like, wow. So Rob is main eventing, the house show with the secondary title in the main event.
That's awesome. Well, he was the main event. I mean, later on it became Taz, but it was always, in my eyes, it was always RVD always stole the show. Them and the Dudleys always stole the show.
Oh yeah,
and,
the Dudleys, and they were straight up just mad evil heels.
The nuclear heat they could get.
They got so much. We were talking about it earlier off the air. I was at the show at the Elson in Queens where Raven comes back and wins the tag titles with Tommy Dreamer right before the Dudley Boys end up with Vince in WWE. And the heat they got when they said they were taking the belts and they were going to put them on McMahon's desk and they were going to do this and they were going to do that. People were throwing shit in the ring. I was there, man. I was loving every minute of it. And then here comes Raven and Tommy Dreamer. They win. Everything goes crazy. And even after the show, the Dudleys, they appreciated all the stuff that we gave them. I mean, they were the best. I love those guys. And, everything they got in their career is well deserved in my eyes. I think they were absolutely amazing.
Yeah, they would definitely. I mean, their goal was to piss people off any way they could. I mean, they said some stuff you could never say what they said back in the ECW on TV today.
I read that video clip in the best in the Rise and Fall ECW DVD. I always love that clip where he goes, "Here you have a mother and daughter in the front row, and a mother teaching her daughter how to suck dick." I was going crazy. I was like, "Are you saying this like live? Like is this real?" I mean, I couldn't believe that. And it was a nightly thing for them. It was a nightly thing for them. They were.
I was just gonna say, I remember people going online and being like, "Can you believe what the Dudleys said?"
Yeah,
like even in the towards their end of their run, they're like, "Can you believe what they said?"
They had no fear.
I mean, they call out. I was at one show. They called out this one dude for wearing a Stone Cold Steve Austin T-shirt to an ECW show, and I mean, just
Zeus, yes, thank you for reminding me.
I mean, just anything, man. I mean, we used
to hate the guys.
He would just look for somebody that looked a little drunk or
we used to hate the guys who used to show up to the ECW shows and have WWW and or have the WWF merch on. Those guys got destroyed. Let me tell you, they got beer thrown at them. They got spit on, and I mean, you can't wear something like that to an ECW show. I always wore my oldest pair of jeans and a beat up T-shirt because I was going to get beer, spit, sweat, and God knows who knows what the hell else on me, So blood was on me. I mean, you can't wear stuff like that. You deserve to get beat up.
Oh yeah. Easy, and of course, it's a little different. It was a little different down here, seeing original ECW shows, but yeah, it was.
Well, that's the thing about Lucha Underground, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Lucha Underground. Hey,
I think it's this generation's. I believe it could be considered this generation's ECW. I know there was Wrestling Society X before that, and it was like a precursor to LU, but I believe LU is the real deal. It's like that. I mean, the fan interaction is the same. There is nothing that anybody won't do or say. it's a little different only because it's an actual TV show, instead of a wrestling program. But
Right.
I mean, and you know me. I mean, I don't know what was really trying to say that I've been trying to get to eat. I've been trying to get to LU tapings all the way out in California.
Yep.
Because I know, I believe in my heart that I can recreate that ECW arena feeling in the temple.
Well, speaking about Lucha Underground, since we're to just tag this on before we run out of time here, what about the new trailer?
That trailer is absolutely awesome. I've seen it about 6,423 times and counting. Okay, I'm not one of these guys. And please, guys who are listening, don't go to these sites and try to break down the trailer, see what they're going to do, who they're going to bring in, and the storyline. No. Be a fan like us. Watch it, love it, enjoy it, and wait for the 13th to come and mark out over it.
It's just so, I mean, it's so intense, and it's like, wow, things, if you thought that things were kind of settling into a groove for season 4, it's like, nope, shit's going to get crazy.
Oh my God. I saw Tommy Dreamer. I lost my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. Let's go. I mean, that's it, I'm hooked.
I mean, I saw Killer Cross, and I was like, oh.
Well, I know. I was the same way. I was like, is that Killer Cross? Yeah. I paused it. I put the video on my TV because I put it on my big screen. I was like, I went up to the TV, like I was about 2 inches away from the screen, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Killer Cross. I was going crazy.
The Killer Cross. And it looks like somehow he's connected to the Rabbit Tribe.
Yes, I was going to say that, but I wasn't quite entirely sure. But I think you're right.
And it's really funny because when the buzz was going on with Killer, and he'd like done some dark matches in LU, and he was wearing his LU hoodie around to independent shows, and I saw him, and I was like, I wonder if he's Saltador. And and
that's good, Zeus. That's good.
Yeah, because I mean, before they really kind of started showing him all, you couldn't get a great look at his body type, and especially with that funky bodysuit.
Yeah.
And then I got to talk to Killer at WrestleCade 2 years ago. And he's like, I appreciate you guys, giving me the hashtag, Lucha Underground. He's like, I'm not part of the Rabbit Tribe. And I was like, oh man. He's like, but me and Killshot, we had a dark match that will blow your mind if they ever show it. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. He's like, man, you'd be great,
I heard
Lucha Underground.
I heard that in previous seasons, some of the dark matches are, actually better than some of the matches that were actually aired.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why, oh my God, I'm so pumped up for it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting all pumped up. I'm already ready.
I am marked out.
So good.
Pedro, what do you marked out for most from that trailer?
From the trailer, oh my God, there's so many things like the Kevin Cross stuff, especially with that staff coming to him and that weird cage with the thing that's just like out there, and then like the stuff with Cuerno, Dragon Azteca Jr. and Aerostar.
That was pretty cool.
And oh my God, that stuff, like, Cuerno's like, we have to send this back in time. And I don't know.
Oh my God.
The gods are getting too strong, and that face Aerostar makes, and he's like, make it quick. And I was like, oh, Aerostar.
That was awesome.
Like,
I mean, such great production value too. I mean, this is done perfectly. This is done perfectly.
The stuff I'm most scared about is the stuff with Katrina. I am scared for her from the stuff from that trailer. Yeah,
that looks sick. I just walked out over Tommy Dreamer because I know because it reminds me of ECW. I was like, no way. Who cares?
Yeah,
Jack Swagger? Who gives a shit about Jack Swagger? I saw Tommy Dreamer, so I know it's going to be something: blood, sweat, tears, chairs. Something's going to be involved.
Well, You know, with Katrina though, I mean, you can drop her off a building. You know, she can still teleport, man.
She's still teleport. I mean,
y'all
not for nothing, but she is like 250 years old, so she's good.
Y'all are gonna make me want to see something that we may not get now. Now I want to see her fall off like a building, and before she hits the ground, she like teleports. That would be like the most awesome thing. I'll be freaking out forever, like
all I can tell you is that season 4, it's going to be amazing, man. And you know what? I can't wait to talk about it on the Way to Real podcast. I can't wait to talk about it on the MMM show because those are great places to be. Those are great people to be around.
We love our friends, Mel and Dante and
Justin and CJ and the guys. I mean, those guys are everything, man. By Lucha, YYHH, Angie, everybody, the whole crew.
YYH and the Angelico team, the
Angelico team, yes, Angelico #1 fan.
Angelico's #1 fan.
Yes, sir.
It is. It's definitely going to be a crazy ride, and then looking forward to next week and another Saturday morning markout Mania.
Yeah, definitely, guys. I hope to continue this conversation. It was great talking to you, Tex. It was awesome talking to you, Zeus, man. I had a great time. I mean, I could easily stay here for another 2 hours and just bullshit about wrestling all day long. But I'll see. I'll see you guys next week, and I will continue this conversation on Twitter. So stop on by and just have a good time. Have a good Saturday. Enjoy your pancakes. Enjoy your coffee. Let's do it next week. I'll see you guys. Have a good afternoon.
You too, James.
Everyone.
All right, Pedro.
Okay, Zeus, James, adios. Everyone, thanks for joining us, and we'll see y'all next time.
Pedro, Zeus, peace. Mark out Mania, baby.